Alright, so, as you've all probably been told, my name is David Krismer, and I'm currently in grade 9, and I'm homeschooled right now. And just before I begin, I'd like to say a big thanks to letting me speak at this event and everyone who made it possible. And it's a big honor, even if I'm not here with you all in person. Alright, let me get right into it. The first thing that I want to talk about is my teacher, Gord Holden. History is one of his strong points. Instead of handing out large books with small print telling about various events through history, he would instead tell a story. Ranging from funny to dramatic, history became almost an instant favorite with everyone in our class. I don't think a single person failed the history test, or even got under 70% correct. We'd become captivated in history. Stories are how we learn. But there is something much more powerful than a story. Experience. If you lived through one of the world's famous events that make up history, you would remember every second of it. The only problem is that most of us haven't lived through these events because history is aptly named, history. So kids don't really experience the history. So they kind of experience a whole different thing. Kids experience these crazy adventures on alien worlds flying through space and time. But this experience is 100% simulated. It's all in video games. So who doesn't want to go on an adventure? Kids get so into their games that they might even give teachers good talks on history. So, unless you have a teacher like Gord Holden, my teacher, school seems pretty boring compared to the surreal environment of their video games. So, why not make education like video games? I've been quite lucky to have Gord as my teacher because he also understands that the age of stories is coming to an end, or at least the way we share them. Our stories are now becoming experiences within a virtual world. So me and my teacher have begun recreating the stories inside of virtual worlds. And in other words, video games are becoming education. When was the last time you sent an actual letter to someone just to talk to them? In virtual worlds, real-time chat between people is no problem. Yes, we have our email, but it's not quite the same as instant messaging in a virtual world. On the same note, yes, of course we have our pagers and cell phones, and we can make texts and, that kind of stuff. So fast these days. But if you're in a virtual world, not only do you see the message that the person you are talking with sends you, but also the actions and movements of their avatar or in-game character. On top of this, it is also quite less expensive to use virtual worlds as well. For example, maybe if a student is homeschooled, sending supplies and textbooks can be quite costly. But if you're using a 3D virtual world, information and tools for experiments can already be waiting inside for the student. I would also like to note that some independent schools are already making the switch. And I've been incredibly lucky because my school is actually making the switch. And we just have to adopt them and use them for our full-time education. Now, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to tell you about some of my number one favorite worlds. So, I'd also like to mention that these worlds are already designed for education and are just ready to take off and change the world. One of my number one favorites is called Quest Atlantis. It's a quite an impressive world and content that not only covers all of the required school material, but also ethical issues as well, such as bullying and fair play. It's an excellent program. It's had me hooked doing my school for quite some time. Another is to mention new games. It covers math fully and is a very competitive online program. I think think down in the States they actually have their own competitive tournament as well, so that's quite interesting. But my absolute favorite is something called Thinking Worlds. Now the cool thing about Thinking Worlds is that it covers everything. There's not a single thing that it misses out on. Not just meaning education, everything. Once I even saw a lesson on sushi. Now, I learned a lot about sushi, but the best thing about the sushi lesson was not anything to do with the actual sushi. It was the fact that the lesson was made by my classmate. Thinking Worlds is a world creator. You can do anything in Thinking Worlds because you are creating everything. Now, when we think about games and simulations, we normally think that there's a lot of programming involved, fancy code, and other things that keep making our own virtual world and games and simulations far out of reach. Thinking Worlds and all of these simulations, on the other hand, are very easy, you know, click and drag, super easy. And as well as easy, the future of education in these virtual worlds is inexpensive and self-directed, allowing learners to go at their own pace, even if a student isn't close to a school. Just so long as they have a computer, and soon a smartphone, they can learn from anywhere in the world. Even Banff, Alberta. Virtual worlds are changing stories to experiences in a more effective way of learning than ever before. The tools are already there. Let's use them to our advantage. It's where the world is going, and it's a matter of get on the train and ride to the future, or get left behind at the station.